She is a British wrestling legend who broke down barriers, a female wrestling pioneer, a multi-time British and European champion. This is the Grapple of Rye Show, episode 64, Klondyke Kate. Welcome to the Grapple of Rye Show. My guest today is a boundary-breaking female wrestling legend, European champion, British champion, and just broke so many barriers that she probably still is breaking some as we speak. Our guest today, ladies and gentlemen, I give to you Klondyke Kate.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. Now, our first-time guest on the show always gets the same question, and that question is, where did it all begin for you?
Well, I think it's out there that I originally went to Blackpool, and basically I did. I was 14 years old and I didn't have a very good home life. So this particular time I kept running off to Blackpool to see if I could learn to wrestle. And because I looked very different than everybody, I didn't think I'd ever be accepted. So I'd gone up as a punter watching a show in Blackpool, and they were doing the challenges, and I stood watching for a long time and noticed that they kept going out, coming in, and the same people were going in to do the actual fighting, and I'm thinking these have definitely been put there. So I asked at first if I could go in it, and they said no, we don't have women doing this, blah blah blah. And so I paid for a ticket to go in. Don't forget there was 3 shows a day there at the Horseshoe Bar, so it was like get them in, get it done, get them out, and get the next lot in. So I went, sat on the front row, and I'd got this summery dress on, and I'm sat there, and in the ring was a guy who's not supposed to be able to speak English, called Mighty Chang, and he caught his head, he bled like a pig, come over the top rope, landed on my knee, and I looked like I'd been slaughtered. My dress was covered from head to toe in blood, and it was a lot of blood. So I was panicking, went up to the promoter. I knew he was the promoter because he was on the mic doing all the spiel. And I said to him, I said, what are you going to do about my dress? I said, my bloody dress is ruined now. What am I going to do? And I'm 14, remember? And he's saying, oh, you'll be all right, love, blah, blah, blah. Anything to sort of blag me out of having anything else to say. So then he said to me, he said, oh, wouldn't you like to do a bit of wrestling? I said, I'd love to do some. But I said, I just don't think I'm cut out for it. I'm not pretty. And he said, that doesn't matter. He said, I can make you a monster. So basically, I kept going up week after week. The first day I went and got in the ring, literally the first move I did, I broke my ankle. A guy called Tony Francis slammed me, and as I came down, my ankle turned and I snapped my ankle. So it was back home and no training for a little while. Then I kept coming back week after week, and I think they got fed up of me coming. They didn't want me, it was obvious that was. But I think because of how much I wanted to be around them, they let me in, and I was absolutely awful.
So what sort of training, well, once you got back from ankle, what sort of training were they doing? Because people listening nowadays, I'm imagining, people see like the WWE Performance Center and all these sorts of things. What was training in those days?
Well, when I started, there was probably 6 women. That was it. But the only couple of ladies I knew were up in Blackpool at the start. So I trained, and this is not a word of a lie. I trained in a damp old garage, and there were 4 posts cemented into the ground with a no mat, just a canvas over the concrete. So basically, dodgy ropes that were just hanging down, no tautness, so you could break your bloody neck on them. You know, you'd be so badly put together. But that's where we learned. And what basically happened was we learned at first not to use the ropes in any shape or form. Or that gets you thinking. So eventually, I'm still absolutely awful, but they decide to put me in a tag match because the mighty Chang, who I find out is originally from Portsmouth. So I get talking to him. He's really impressed with me for some reason, God knows why. And he put a good word in for me, and they kept me there. So I actually moved up to Blackpool and stayed with a friend, and I started there. And everybody said I was awful, and I was really bad at it. But they said there was something there because I was a show off. I took to being a villain like a duck to water, and I really enjoyed it. And I got no fear either. I wasn't frightened of anything. So I also used to think that if I went there, people would get in the ring with me and I'd do challenges. But it never worked like that. You know, I had one challenge in my life from a female who I really didn't know, and she was that strong. I thought I was going to lose to it, and in the end, I jumped on her and broke a leg. I broke her leg. I think it was the biggest bone from her shin down. Oh God, I was mortified, but I had to do it. So that was it. That was me. And that's where my
Gotcha.
reputation came from.
So when you started then, are you Klondike Kate from the beginning, or were there a few
No,
other sort of
no,
names and
you
characters?
know I wasn't. This name he gave, Tony Francis, you know, he's gone now and he was the most lovely fella ever. But in those days, I thought he was cruel to me, but he wasn't. He was great. He said my name was going to be Big Bertha, and I cried and begged him. I said, please, no, don't call me that. Please, I do not want to be Klondike. I don't want to be Big Bertha. So rapidly, they kept me like that. Also, they told me how to dress at first. So the dungarees came out, the hillbilly look, and they did change it to Klondike Kate, but I was mortified with the name. And it was Bobby Barron, who was the promoter of the shows in Blackpool, that that gave me the name, you know. And our sort of backstory was my dad was a Mountie in the Canadian police. Actually, my dad was 5'1" and he worked on a steelworks in Stoke-on-Trent, so a bit different than real life. But it, you know, people wanted it, and they wanted people to be different, and I was different, and I think that's why I was there for so long, because I looked very different than everybody else. Really, you know, there's
What
only
was
one
that
other
initial?
woman.
Oh, I was gonna say, what was that initial bit like then? Were you on with the same? Was it like you and the same woman all the time, or was there
Well,
people
basically,
coming
what
in or out
happened?
when you were first starting?
First match I ever did, I was put in a tag match with, I was with Rusty Blair versus Cherokee Princess and a brand new girl who had got way more experience than me, but in martial art, not in wrestling. She got in the ring. She was absolutely useless. Sorry, my dogs are fighting. Thank you. Um, and she was hopeless, really hopeless. And within 10 minutes of us coming out the ring, she was gone, never to be seen again ever. And I've never forgot, she lived in Derby and off she went. I've never seen her since. So basically, I'd gone, I was awful in the ring. As soon as I stepped in the ring, I banged heads with Rusty Blair. We sort of clashed together and I felt a right tool. I thought, oh, this isn't going to work, you know. But I started shouting at the audience. I mean, it was packed. It was always packed. 600. It was like a 550-seater venue, always packed to the rafters. So
People in like, yeah,
yeah, all end in. It was unbelievable, and the atmosphere was electric for the place it was in. So basically, I showed out. I had a go at crowds. Somebody got a toupee on, and I leaned over and I took the fella's toupee off. So basically, I got through by the skin of my teeth. So I think really what they did was it was a part of making me that character really, because I obviously the only wrestling I'd seen was at the Victoria Hall in Hanley, where I was born. I was born there, and I used to go there. My nan was one of the Saturday afternoon handbag brigades who watched it, and that's how I got interested in it. So I originally started to watch it in Hanley, but then I didn't see no girls then because it was all joint promotions. So basically, until I went to Blackpool, I didn't know there were any girls. And there was only, I would say, I don't know if you've ever heard of Jack Cassidy, but he was wrestling, he was an old wrestler, had been at it about 60 years. He had 5 daughters, and all of them were in the business, but only very briefly. There was only sort of Haggerty that stayed a while, and Lolita Loren, they were sort of there for quite some time. Mitzi was one of the first to start, and Lena. And really, I'm probably about the 6th or 7th one that came along. But then after me, there wasn't all that until sort of the late 2000s. So we had a really sort of dry time in the noughties and 90s where I had to work with guys because there was no girls for me to work with. And the ones that we did have usually came over from America, and Christ, they were awful. Awful.
I'm going
Sorry,
to get
but
to
they were. I
a
mean,
few questions on that bit. But
yeah,
so you're developing now. You've got a few matches under your belt. You've got the crowd around. Like you say, you've got a packed house, so you're always going to learn in front of that.
yeah,
When does Klondike Kate emerge, and when does it start to move out from Blackpool and maybe other shows? Because again,
right.
actually, before I even say, maybe explain a little bit as well, because again, people might not get it, but in certain parts of the country, like London, wouldn't allow women's wrestling, would it? And
Right.
certain parts are
Yeah,
about just to get the landscape. What was it
yeah,
like? 'Cause obviously you're finding that out yourself as you're
yeah.
entering this business. What was all that like?
So basically, your first hurdle is when you come into the business as a girl, the guys, which there were hundreds of guys, um, didn't want you be in it, didn't like you to be taking any of their sort of work or heat, and you had to work twice as hard to gain any respect. And it's okay saying, oh, you shouldn't care about respect, but respect that's what it's all about. You go into it and you show respect for those that have done it and that are teaching you, and you learn from them. So basically, going in and keeping your mouth shut and serving your time and doing what you're told gives you more experience than anything else. So basically, the person I am today, I would never have been like that. When I first started, I was quiet. I couldn't, I felt intimidated by everybody. And I also had, can I say, the absolute shit ripped out of me from the guys when I first started. Talk about pranks and stuff like that. I got it all. So basically, I had to really work hard to sort of earn any kind of reputation. And when you said about promotions, in the 70s, there was quite a few little indie promotions, of which Brian Dixon was one of them, just starting out. Um, who his stuff became phenomenal, and I'll get to that. But it's like little indie shows in different places. But we'd go, and I think they'd advertise it like I was advertised as a bra and panties version of an oil drum. So everybody kind of got the wrong idea. So when girls turned up, they thought it was like the Dirty Mac Brigade. People thought that's what it was all about. But it wasn't. It was family orientated shows. And we were taught in a way that no, you work like the boys. You're obviously not as rough as the lads, so we thought, but we did kind of have to work a lot harder to get where we got. And a typical example in the 80s, we used to go over to Northern Ireland a lot and Southern Ireland. And we were in the borders of north and south, and we were wrestling in this little this little town. It was a really small town. Can't remember the name of it, but basically it was a village hall, but it was packed to the rafters, about 1,000 people. So we get to the village, and the ring's gone up and everything, and the parish priest comes in and says, "Oh, we can't have girls." And we sort of went, "What?" And Orig Williams, who was the promoter at the time, and said, "This is half my bill. This is my girls are my bread and butter."
Oh, like,
No,
yeah.
we can't. So what I had to do was Tina Starr, who was my opponent, sat out and just didn't wrestle. And I, with the help of the mighty Chang, turned into a man for the night. And I wrestled Peter Nolte. And nobody sussed me apart from the priest. The priest sussed me. So I've worked as a father, I've worked as myself, I've wrestled men. The only things I haven't done is wrestle animals, I haven't done any of that. But I've definitely, we've always come up to some kind of block with girls. And it took so many years to prove that we could do what the guys could do. And also, in some occasions, and I've got to be careful here, in some occasions, be top of the bill and steal their thunder. Oh God, they hated it. They didn't like it at all. The ones who were okay were always like very supportive, but it was definitely such a man's world, totally misogynistic and what have you. But I loved it because I found myself somewhere where I felt wanted and needed, and people looked after me. And I'd never had that before. I was a kid who'd had a horrible time. So I think, in a way, and it sounds very dramatic, but I think it saved my life because I have such an addictive nature. I don't drink, I don't smoke, but I think that if I hadn't have gone challenged it into sort of channeled it into that, I don't know, God knows where I'd be now. I'd be addicted to something, I'm sure I would, because that's the kind of person I was. But it's given me my life and I love it. So those are the very early days. And also costumes as well. The costumes now are so elaborate and beautiful. We used to wear all we had was black leotard, I mean, I was one of the first to with a mixing to wear anything that other than just a leotard, and different stuff. But I always had my own sort of thing in mind what I wanted to be, and that red and black devil was like my moniker. I've got it tattooed on my back actually, so it's like that's who I wanted to be, and never did I ever feel like I wanted to be a babyface because you have so much more fun when you're a villain. And I think in life, I'm more of a villain than I am a sort of babyface. So I loved it. It was real. It was really, but so different from today. So different.
Female wrestler in the UK at that point, then, there's tours going on. I mean, in its heyday, there could be three or four decent shows a night, around from joint promotions and the other ones going on. What
Yeah.
was it like for a female wrestler? Were you getting that many shows, or was it a
Oh
couple of
my.
weeks for you guys?
Oh no, no. God, it was absolutely unbelievable. I started off in 77 at 14. By 1978, I'd done over probably 600 matches. So, and that was in sort of 12 months. So I'd never really had a rest from it until the late noughties. No, sorry, tell a lie. I finished in 2012. So it was the late 90s. It went quiet then, but I was still working. I was still wrestling probably at least 3 times a week, at least every week. So I really have never had no time off apart from having my kids, and that's another story because my first child
So
I
that,
had didn't know I was
I
having
mean,
him. So
that was recently topical. We'll get into that with your advisory thing as well. Yeah, no,
yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
But
But it's no, it was so hard, and it's a different world now compared to what it was. But I genuinely preferred that life before because there was no internet, there was none of this, going on an internet and having something to say about something that you know nothing about. And I used to think, like, I'm glad I grew up in that era because I didn't have to worry what people were thinking about me, And as a wrestler, I think we've all got this thing where we like, of course, we like the attention. We wouldn't do it if we didn't. But I just think it's such a dog eat dog now, and it's backstabbing everywhere. So I just find it difficult now as I've got older. I just think that the world isn't as kind as it used to be. So I just think, thank God I grew up in when I did, because I really enjoyed those years.
So what was it like then? So you're wrestling all across the UK now, and then I think was it 82? Suddenly, you're getting
God,
this
yeah.
offer from Japan.
Well, 82, I did 7 countries in 82. Well,
Yes,
we did,
well,
we went to, we did a trip to Egypt. We went to Tel Aviv in Israel, Japan. Yeah, we went to Japan, and oh God, we went to Nigeria, Lagos, and we actually wrestled on the edge of the Gobi Desert as well. So that was the year really I spread my wings, but also by 1980, I was working for Brian Dixon and
yeah,
Mitzi. And I met Brian because one of his girls didn't turn up at a show, and I was at the Liverpool Stadium with the Mighty Chang, and he put me in. Oh God, I was frightened to death because it's like Liverpool Stadium. If you can get through Liverpool Stadium, you can get through anything. I'm telling you, because it was that they were wild, absolutely wild. You think people get heat now. Years ago, you've heard nothing like it. Not to mention the fact that in those days there was no security. The people who did security couldn't stop people. Hundreds of people would try and get in the ring, and off them. You'd be fighting to get back out of the ring. And so we put me in at Liverpool Stadium, and that first night, I was a villain. I went on with uh, Joe Critchley, a man, and he was
hmm
dressed as a Black Widow, a woman, and he was dressed as a Black Widow, and I wrestled him. And as I came out the ring, I didn't realise they'd go for you. I'd not been to the stadium before. They literally hijacked me going up there, and I got torn to shreds. Somebody hit me with a crash helmet, knocked me spark out. So I was out for a few seconds, but the guy was still standing there with the helmet in his hand. And I think that was the biggest mistake he made in his life, because I literally pulled myself up on his testicles and I took him with me near enough. So he was very sorry he'd done that. So police had called me even at every, it was like a riot. I've never seen nothing like it. And all I did was come on with Joe. But when you're in that ring, both of you make that match. And he made me like $1 million, and like, oh, they hated me. And I got a flavour for that. I loved it. After that, that was me. I was never going to be turned to anything else other than what I was.
I would say that the worst thing is no reaction. So if you're getting that kind of heat, you must be doing something right. So yeah,
Well, I don't know today how people wrestle. I honestly, I thrive on participation, and I don't know whether it's cheap or not. I don't think it is, but I think you tell a story, and if that story involves the audience, they like it even more because they're involved. And where else can you go and be like that and not get locked up and thrown away? You know what I mean? You can do all this stuff without participation, but it sends me to pieces. Actually, I just feel, and you've got to give it all, whether there's 2 people in the crowd or there's 2,000,000, 2,000 people in the crowd. You've still got to do your all and do your best. But that amount of participation, it's like better than any drugs, any sex, any rock and roll, anything. It's like it's so overpowering. So that's the kind of that's the kind of life I led all the time. I loved it, and I've been in so many sticky spots for a girl, because the girls did get a bit of stick, but I got the most because I was either getting stabbed, or I was getting a knife to me throat. Really, really bad
I
things.
remember when I was younger, and I may have even been at the show at Southampton Guildhall. I think there were some knitting needles at one point.
No, it was
I think
the knitting
I might have been,
needles
I
at
might have been.
Norwich.
I was a young child in those days. I'm sure that was there. I was
It
somewhere,
might
something
have
like
been.
that.
I know I've had a foot and mouth injection stuck in my backside. At Norwich, I had to go have it out because it had hit a nerve in my leg. Oh, my leg went numb, but I was fine. But so I got a big needle in my bum at Norwich because they were wild there. I also got stabbed in Aberdeen in my hand. They went for my kidneys and got my hand. And Dave Finlay actually went back up to the guy because the guy had sat back down, and he dragged this guy out and dragged him outside, gave him a good hiding, got the police, and this guy got sent to court, and I ended up with like an operation on my hand because all my thumb had gone. Like, oh, right mess, blood everywhere. Mitzi's lovely blonde hair, thick and congealed blood. It was like, and I carried on going because you don't feel it when you're in there. Your adrenaline's going, especially
Yeah,
yeah, especially if the crowd's a good crowd as well. And there were so many places where they were so hot, and people were frightened. And I actually think what you've got to learn as well is learn to get them up, but you've also got to learn how to bring them down, and that's where your teamwork comes in. So I think we've done good over the years. We've had some really sort of crackers, but I have had the lion's share of men having a pop at me. That's for sure. Yeah,
you mentioned about Brian Dixon and Mitzi Miller. I mean, it was Brian. I believe anyway, it was one of the main campaigners for getting the wrestling back in London in the Royal Albert Hall. And
he
there's that
was.
famous picture now with Flying Fuji Armado
Yeah,
go on and make a bit of a name for himself, and yourself, Mitzi, Mighty Quinn, and I think
yeah,
Kendo and George as well. You know,
unbelievable. That guy, Brian Dixon, as I could never ever say a bad word about him. He gave me that life that I had. He looked after me. He put a roof over my head when I hadn't got one, and he he started off with a handful of girls, and I mean just a handful, and then a couple of guys come along. Steve Young, who is now Skull Murphy, he came along. A little bit later, Dave Taylor, and slowly, drip by drip, joint promotion guys were coming over. Brian was putting out more shows. They were getting better. And I mean, he started off with just he'd do three matches, a girls' match, a guys' match, and it had this kind of formula, and it worked. But as the crowds got bigger, the girls actually did something in 1987 that hadn't been done before. We did that Raging Bells for BBC
yeah,
Two, and what it did was it followed us around for 6 months. Followed us around for 6 months, and they we did like we wrestled each other semi-finals, finals, and obviously me and Nicky Munro were in the finals, and it was it opened everybody's eyes to it. It also told people there were girl wrestlers and that it was okay to come to a show because it was a family affair. And the girls did get a lot more work and a lot more interest once that had been on. So the girls then, there was probably six of us there again, doing all that. Nicky Munro, Lena, Leather Lena, there was a few that were there. Mitzi had retired then, but um those were the kind of things that sort of lifted it a little bit again. And it got to a stage where Brian was putting us as top of the bill. If I'm honest, I've got to be, I'd be lying if I said I didn't, but I didn't care. I didn't care if I won or I lost. And my thrill was was getting a crowd reaction. That was me, and that's what I wanted. So if I didn't get it, I was really pissed off. But rarely did I not get it. So yeah, it is. It's I just don't know how they do it now, and not have participation with people. Can't help that.
We'll get on to that. I've got a few. But so yeah, so you're doing that. You've got it back at the Royal Albert Hall, women allowed to wrestle in London. You've got, the 80s. I say you're wrestling
Yeah,
around the world now. So say,
yeah,
what was it like? Who are you wrestling with when you go in these places? Are you on tour with it? I know in the All Japan Women's, you had the whole who's who of pretty much Japanese women's wrestling at the time, and a lot of those
yeah,
names are still looked upon as legends
yeah,
nowadays. So you're
yeah,
mixing up with all those guys. I'm
yeah.
not
I
going to
worked with
bad
all of
myself by
those.
trying to say all the names. Yeah.
Well, working for Brian, to be honest, I literally worked with Mitzi, which was the number one. We just sort of went to everywhere and did the circuit so many times for years. Um, I would wrestle Lena, Leather Lena, and Nikki Monroe, and also Rusty Blair. Cherokee Princess had retired by then. Um, Absolutely amazing girls, by the way. Tina Star, Rusty Blair, Cherokee Princess. Um, Orig Williams taught them, and the Mighty Chang. And they all were awesome, awesome wrestlers. Like I would look at them and just my jaw would drop. They were so good. So a lot of them had gone by then. So it was basically Mitzi. Then when I started going abroad, I started working with Orig's girls then, Rusty um, and Nikki abroad, Busty Keegan, and I went out to Japan in 82, and we spent, I think it was 8 weeks out there. And my God, what an eye opener that was. I knew when I went it was going to be hard, but I didn't know how hard. And I
What
think
were
it
the
was,
challenges?
oh,
What were the
Jesus.
challenges?
Well, every night, Buster Keegan Sue had one opponent, so she basically did a single match every night. But me, then I thought they had to do to me. They put me in the um, six-girl tag at the end of the night. So they've had all this all night, and then they've got this six-girl tag. And the daft thing is, they all want to hurt you. Every single one of them want to hurt you and want to sort of say, "This is my
Yeah,
gaff." You know what I mean? So that was a big shock because it was like working with the lead balloons. I've never worked with anything like that in my life, and literally lifting, doing stuff was like they were just like brick shit. I just don't know. And I'm considering it, I always, we have this preconception that Japanese people are very slender and very small. I wrestled a girl called Jumbo Hori, and she was 6'2", and she was enormous. She was enormous. I was head and shoulders over me. And literally night after night, they kicked seven bells out of me. And my tag partner was Devil Masami,
hmm,
and she used to go in. I don't know if she still does. I don't know now, but she used to go in with the long kendo stick. But that stick, before it went forward, used to always come backwards and hit me in the face before she hit her opponent. So basically, anytime they could hit us, they would. Um, and I'd had about 7, 8 days of it, and I'd had enough. I thought, oh, I can't handle this. This is doing me in because I'm in a strange place. I'm on my own. I didn't. We knew, and me and Sue knew each other, but not very well. The Japanese girls were totally separate from us. We were always on our own. So basically, it was quite daunting. I lived off bloody McDonald's because I didn't like seafood. So it was hard. And then every night you go in and you come out feeling like you'd had World War III. But what an experience. And also um those girls, they were fantastic. They lived and breathed it. You often wonder what goes on behind closed doors. These girls lived in dormitories, and what they did was they trained morning, noon, and night. And I'm not just saying wrestling training, fitness. Before everybody was doing schools, they were doing fitness fitness camp. They spent nearly all their life from probably about
You ever
14.
have you seen the it's a bit later on, but have you ever seen the Gaia Girls documentary where they're training the yeah.
Yes, I've
I mean
seen
that and
it.
that's years after that. So I can
Yeah,
imagine what it was like before then. Yeah.
I know, unbelievable. They were unbelievable, but I kind of, it's like I don't mind how I wrestle. I don't mind if I'm hurt, but what I don't like is intentional stuff that is going to take your livelihood away. Because anybody with an ounce of common sense knows you can't go in and rip them apart because it's their livelihood and it's your livelihood. So it is what it is. And basically, I just think it's defeating the object if somebody's kicking shit out of you because I often go on sites on the I'm an absolute social media whore now. I can't live without it, but I just think that um you know they rip each other to shreds, and I just don't understand it. I really don't. And people are doing things that are marking people and bruising people. And one of my bugbears, and especially for women, and really I think it should be for everybody, but especially for women, I'm really against the slaps that they give each other on the chest and stuff. And for a woman, I think that is shocking. And it sounds ridiculous because I have done some horrendous things and I've stuck some horrendous things into people. But I'm telling you, I just think that is just no for me. I think
You'll
you
get
can
your
be
handprint on
proud.
me somewhere.
Yeah, but I think you can come out of that ring having done your job, having a good match, and you come out and be happy that you're not damaged. For me, that's something worth bragging about. Not oh, I've got 25 finger marks on my chest and I felt like somebody was killing. Silly buggers. End of. They can come at me all they want, but I have a set thing in my head, and that is one of them. I just do not agree with
Makes
them.
sense. That's
Yeah, it
part of it,
does.
isn't it? It's
Yeah,
that like,
but on the other hand, when I used to wrestle, my corner posts, it'd be very rare that you saw me going to a corner post backward. I would always go in forwards because for me, that's logical, you know? And I've got to feel logical, like I'm doing something I should be doing. Um, and yet we live in a fantasy, isn't it? We do what we do, and it's a fantasy, but I still want logic to do things, and that's
it
how I
needs to
feel in
make
the ring.
sense.
Yeah, I mean, I've
Yeah.
never, I know we shouldn't say this, I know we shouldn't, but I never sort of kind of rated myself as a wrestler because I'm actually very in awe of good, solid people that can wrestle. People like James Mason. There's so many people now. I mean, I don't know a lot of them now because I lost the heart of it when Brian Dixon died. So my heart's gone from it now, but I still would love to see women getting where they need to be. And now, God, there's some amazing women. But same again, I've still got lots of bugbears about things they do that I think, I just think, well, now, even though time's moved on, I sometimes think, nah, no, no, no. And I am very liberal, but I just find things hard to take. And I think to myself, the lifestyle they're living is great, but have a look a bit down the line and look at us. All of us are crippled. I'm crippled now. I am really and I'm done. So, it's like you've got to weigh up is it worth it? And yeah, it is. Of course it is, because that's what we want to do. And like if I never changed a thing, I'd be happy. I'd do it all over again. And I've had some dodgy things happen to me, so I think that the life is worth all the pain and the shit that goes with it. But and obviously the people that do it now are working. I mean, the stuff they do is unbelievable. So I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they travel day in, day out, and they're still standing.
Well,
Yeah.
so many things they do now. And well, like you're saying, you look back at what people have done. I mean, I can remember one of the first times I went to the wrestlers reunion at Wayne Bridges pub, and there's all these people we know that I'd watched for years and
Yeah,
admired, etc. And you just sort of saw them coming in with a cane and walked it, and
yeah.
because they obviously they put the hours in, but they're not doing the things people are doing nowadays. They're not doing all
Can you
these
imagine?
super triple
Yeah,
flips and all that. And I
no,
dread to
no,
think what it's going to be like,
no.
sort of in,
I mean, the
people.
bumps. I didn't take massive bumps, but also I didn't just walk around doing nothing. There was a lot I did in there for the size of me, and now, I mean, I trying to explain to somebody who doesn't wrestle or has never been around it that you've not got fibromyalgia, but your body's knackered because of all the bumps you've taken and stuff. And I don't know anybody now, same age as me, that isn't crippled from wrestling, especially when the times we work, how often we work. Because, like I say, people say now, "Oh, I did about 12 jobs this year." We used to do 12 a week, and it was like, it was mental, and it'd be up and down. We'd do 3 shows. The most we ever did was 5 shows in one day. And it was
Yeah, it's like
literally
you were
back to
saying,
back. Yeah, it was
what you were
back
saying
to
just
back.
now. In that first year, you done like
Yeah.
600
Oh God,
matches.
I could have.
That's some people's
Oh,
career. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah. And that make me laugh when I see people coming on and they say, "Oh, he's a veteran," and I'm thinking, yeah. I mean, I shouldn't, because it's nothing to wind me up. I don't care, But I just think that they throw legend around very easily, and I just think, yeah, you wait till you've had 40 years of it. You can call yourself a legend, or you can
Yeah,
just say. But I mean, I'm not bitter about anything the way I am. My body's knackered, but God, what a life I've had! What a story I've got! I can't. I overshare. I'm a very oversharing person, and I think the life I've had is astonishing compared to where I've come from and what I've come from. Come from an abusive home, and I don't blame that. It's actually done. It was what pushed me forward to make a go of it. And if I hadn't tried that, God knows where I'd be now. Just don't know. I really don't, because I never had no aspirations for anything, only wrestling. And I actually went back to school. Well, I went back to college when I was 36, and I did all my GCSEs and 4 A levels and passed every one of them. So I suppose I'm not unintelligent, but I did waste my years in school. But at 14, I'd gone, so I only did it up to. Yet I'm a reader. I love writing. I love talking about stuff. So it hasn't done me too harm, but I still think I should have been a bit more um, happy to go to school. To be honest, I'd encourage anybody now. I would.
well, one of the things you did do, again, going back with Brian Dixon as well, when Brian sort of got his share of the TV time, because there was the joint promotions for years, and then he finally
Yeah,
got a bit. When am I right? You were the first female match. Were you not on TV?
I
Was
don't
it no?
think
And
what
as a
happened was.
manager,
See,
I
I
know
was.
Paula had been on, and Dr. Monica Kaiser with Joe McDonald, and then I think you were the
I don't think I did, because for the simple reason I can't. Brian got cable, didn't he, at first? And we didn't we
the
didn't do
Starlight Wrestling. Yes, maybe I'm
we
confusing it
didn't
with
do
that.
any of them. The girls didn't.
No.
But uh, let me think. See, I was convinced I'd done World of Sport, and what it was in a way, but basically they'd taken it off ITV,
Yeah.
and I was the first girl to actually wrestle Shirley Crabtree. I was the only girl that's ever wrestled Shirley
So
Crabtree.
remember you did the face to face with Big Daddy, and
Yeah,
I'm
but
watching that.
it was televised, but it was on a Wednesday night, because at one point they threw it back onto a Wednesday night, didn't they? So we did 3 days filming in Scotland. First day was me being in a manager, and that's where it was set up. And the next day and Johnny Kidd was in it, Greg Valentine, me.
The
Uh,
guys in masks, wasn't it? Was it the
yeah,
snake, the
Zuppy,
anaconda or something? Yeah.
Count von Zuppy, the dentist. Yeah, he was in the tag team, and they wouldn't tell me what I was doing. They took me up there, but I thought, I can't see another girl. And I'm thinking, what Scottish girls are working? Because we were in Scotland, we were up in Irvine. And I thought to myself, I wonder what girl he's got. And I was panicking a bit because I'm thinking, there's nobody up here I know, or who am I going to when I get there? He didn't tell me till about half an hour before I went in the ring what I was doing, like, as in who I was on with. And
Yeah.
he said, you're in the I went, what? I was like, I was so nervous. Not of Big Daddy, nervous I'd make a fool of myself,
Mm.
but not in the way you think. I wanted them to laugh at me and take the piss, but I didn't want to let anybody down, and I was very nervous. And you wouldn't believe it. And as a villain, I don't want to burst my bubble because I do like the fact that people were scared of me. I kind of get a bit of a thrill out of that, and I
Scared to
shouldn't,
death
but I
good.
do.
Yeah.
And yeah, I do because I obviously was doing something right if I scared people, and the fact that I am actually nothing like Klondyke is very. I don't know. It's cathartic when I can turn into Klondike Kate at the drop of an hat, and I'm happy to be that person. And really, I haven't got that to fall back on now. I can't go in Klondike Kate mode in the shop, so I'm like, I better bite my tongue. So in a way, I'm sort of, I'm kind of happy. I was a bit like people were a bit frightened on me, but girls who I had never wrestled were petrified, and that's just the kind of thing that builds up as years go by, and people think you've got this reputation, and that's how it's built. But I think now internet kills a lot of it. You either have that great ongoing storyline, or it's gone. And unfortunately now there's so many people talking about what goes on behind the scenes. The magic is going out of it because we know
It's the
people. We're
noise.
not
Oh,
People are not unintelligent, put it that way. We know people are intelligent now. We
yeah.
know that internet has made the world a much smaller place, and people don't fall for things so easily. But you have to take it for face value for what it is. And if it's your kind of entertainment, then you'll never be disappointed ever. But if it's not, then no matter what you do, you're not going to please people. So you can show everything behind the scenes all you like, but it's like me. If I watched a magic show, no way on earth would I want to know how that trick was done, because then there's no magic. And really, that's how I think about wrestling. Nowadays, and I've been to blame because I'm to blame because I do like to tell a tale or two, but I am a bit careful of the kind of tale I want to tell, and what I want to say about people, because I just think everybody in the wrestling business has worked so hard. Everybody, from people who do the rings, who drive the vans, who look after everybody, everybody. It's all a team, and if you can't do with one without the other, and that's what me. But that's the thing now. I think teamwork isn't the number one thing now. It's more like, where can I get myself, and
Yeah.
not what's good for the show or this, and it's
I think
only.
that's the social media bit as well. Now
Yeah,
everyone's got a
yeah,
brand.
it
Everyone's
is.
got a brand now, isn't it? It's my
Of
brand, or
course. Yeah,
that
yeah.
sort of thing. And that's
It,
that's one
and
thing I was
it's
going to say
sad.
with the
But there must
with
be.
the
I mean, there
characters
must
of
be
it.
lots of wrestlers that have a clique together, because you all end up in a clique when you're younger,
Mm.
and you all end up with your little team, if you know what I mean. And I think there's plenty of them around, and I think they do look after each other, but I don't think they look after each other's mental health as well as they could do. And that is something that worries me. And I've always said, um, I would never give anybody any advice that I haven't felt about myself, that I haven't gone through. And I've gone through a lot of shit with wrestling. I've lost babies. I'm not known as pregnant. I have had injuries that have been, you'd be horrified. You wouldn't get back in the ring again. But you just do, because it's the life you want to live, and you just get back in and carry on. I've watched lots of my friends get Alzheimer's and dementia and go. And that's the most heartbreaking out of all of it, is seeing them fade from what they were. you know. So when you look at somebody, and I'm thinking, say, Rollerball Rocco, I'm thinking what a virile man he was, how his wrestling changed all of us, and all his antics and everything. And he was like what you saw in that ring, he was like that 24/7. He exhausted you. He was like that all the time, pranking, doing stuff, thinking up things, winding people up. And I watched him fade. And it's the most heartbreaking thing to see, is to see your friends from what they were to what they've become, and you're with them as well. You know what I mean? I'm in that thing. I think most of the world sport team were about probably 15 years older than me, so I'm the baby of them. But yeah, it's hard to watch people.
No, it's like you say, that whole that sort of generation, that team thing. I mean,
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I think there's a lot more. We'll get onto the on stuff in a bit. There does seem a lot more of it getting back to sort of how it was in some ways, rather than just bits and
Oh,
that. But
I would
we'll go on
love
to that.
it
But
to do that. Yeah, I would love it be how it. I mean, I know we have to change with the times. I know that there's nothing wrong with it. A mixture of everything for me is great. A bit of old, bit of new, and I also think as well. I love the fact. I mean, I like I say, I lost all my love for it when Brian died, because Brian was the one that kept me interested in it and kept me actually coming to shows to see people and doing seminars and stuff. But that in itself blows me mind, because I think, who the bloody hell wants me to do seminars? But I get that they also need stage presence and stuff like that, and having the sort of confidence to speak in the ring, and quick Q&As and all that kind of thing, and about what things used to be like. So basically, I couldn't get in the ring and show anybody anything, and I've always been a person who thinks I've really done well here because I've got imposter syndrome, because I just didn't ever think I was a good wrestler, and I wasn't. But I know what my limits were, but I also know what my strong points were. So in a way, I'm glad. I've had a good run. So I think 40 years is a good run when you consider yourself to be. When I left home, I'd never done. I used to hate PE. I never did a bit of exercise in my life. Never walked. Just didn't. And that
That.
made
What
all
was
the
it like
difference.
though? What was it like though when you got face to face? Big Daddy and you in the ring.
Oh,
This is Big Daddy for everyone. Is like that's the
yeah,
no. It's normally Daddy or Haystacks, isn't it? When people say it, and you
yeah.
had that moment. I mean, for, can
It's.
I ask, was he happy to share the spotlight? Because like you say, there's the women element
I
thing of it, and
don't think he was actually. Johnny,
I'm just guessing.
yeah, Johnny Kidd was in the tag match, and he was amazing. He's always been amazing. I've wrestled him a couple of times, and he is such a grafter. He's such a really good like pro, and I know that Shirley wouldn't have liked it, because I don't know. As he got older, he was really cantankerous and quite. Um, I don't know. We just felt he was just taking the piss out of us, and it was hard. And I always remember that he went for me with the bucket, where he hits people on the head with the bucket. And I actually said to him, "Not on your effing life, I'm not." Off I went underneath the powder, as they call it. I didn't even know what the powder was, the powder. So I went because I thought, nah, you're not hitting me with no bloody bucket with 12 stitches in my head or something. And because that's what happens. And I can't remember much after it. I know it was a buzz because the heat was unbelievable. The place erupted. Uh, and I think when you're in a venue where they have tiers, and them tiers are movable, the noise in the room, the echo of that stuff is like, it's unbelievable. It gives you shivers. And the boss, who was Max Crabtree, which is Shirley's brother, uh, and also the referee was a brother, the three brothers. And one of his sons were in the tag match as well. So it's very nepotistic before we even start. But No, I don't think. I don't think Shirley mixed with many people. He sort of stayed to himself,
Yeah.
but he always had that air of, well, I'm a bit better than you. But he still got in and did it. So obviously, he had some say in the matter. But I just don't know. And I probably think to myself, maybe when I was going up there and they didn't tell me because maybe he just said no. I'm not doing it. But no, he did. He was good as gold
Again,
in that.
I still remember it, and I watched it back earlier. I was just prepping for this, and it comes across really well. And I think it's like you said, I think it's just the strength of your character in it that
Probably. I
people
don't
would have,
know.
no, but people would have paid to watch that because there was that you didn't. Klondike Kate did not take any shit,
Yeah, and
you
it's
know,
funny, but
and
that
it
that's
comes and it comes across like
yeah, as if I'm going to beat him, and how dare he have a go at me? And I just see the thing is, I think also sometimes it's overemphasized, and I think sometimes that's too much. Because sometimes I listen to when people are doing vignettes and they're doing that, and it's so OTT, and I like reality, as in state like it is. Don't go in unless you're a you nearly said yank then. Unless you go in with an American, and you're doing an American accent and all that. I think British people should do their own kind of vignette, not like the Americans. You can tell you who I've watched lately, who I've seen do stuff. I absolutely love it. And I can't even remember if I've met her, and I don't even know if she's on my social media. Harley Hudson. I I watched her the other day, and I watched her do a couple of videos, and she was awesome. There was sort of not a lot of this, It was more getting down to it and giving it as it is, and that's what I like that. And it's a little story really, and it's quite nice because a few years back, I think I was at the very end of my career there, and I went to the O2 to a WWE show. And basically, what it was I lived with a guy that worked in the business called Justin Starr, and he got a tryout with them. So we get there, and they do a tryout, but sadly, there's that many there that day. You didn't get anywhere, and we were about to leave, and I got offered a part in the show at the night, and I basically did a vignette for them that I'd not even rehearsed, and like I was horrified, but it worked out okay. And after, think about 12 months after, the next time my daughter had a tryout, and what they do is they put you on the spot with talking about, they give you they don't even give you a topic. They just ask you to talk about something that's close to your heart, and you have got to talk solid and do it within a few minutes. And my daughter was really, really shy and went just blank. And a certain person who shall be nameless but is British turned around and said, "Why can't you be like your mother? Your mother can do your mother can do it brilliantly." And she said, "I'm not my mother." So that was a bit of a I enjoyed that, I must admit, because we did sort of I'd never wanted it ever to wrestle ever. So I think that she got it out of the system. Can you see me? You there? She got it
so
out
that,
of
yeah,
this. She did about 10 years of it all together, and she got it out of the system, and because like she just did a bit of everything. But she loved wrestling. But once she had that, I just watched her work with people, and I just saw damage after damage all the time, and I thought, no, I don't like this. And eventually she saw sense and did something different, and like now she's a head of department in the local high school, and had a science department, and the teachers that taught her, she's their boss now. So I'm kind of proud of that more than I am that she wrestled, but she did it and got it out of the system, and that's what she needed to
yeah,
do. I knew she would never go to WWE because she hadn't got the heart for it. I watched I watched Soraya from a little kiddie, and all her life it was just wrestle, wrestle, wrestle in her head. There was never nothing else. And in my daughter, I saw lots of different things, you know. So in a way, I'm glad. I'm glad. And she always used to say, "I'm not my mum," you know. Don't even mention my mum because I'm not my mum. And that's good. Good. I like that because I don't think I can open doors for her, but you know, I don't want her thinking she's got to say my name
Like,
to
yeah, well,
work, you know.
yeah,
So basically, that's what she did. So I'm glad she did get it all out of the system and it's finished now. But no, I don't regret. I don't regret anything of it. You know, I'm glad. I'm glad I was
I mean,
around it.
one thing I was going to ask you about as well is I can't remember the exact details, but I do remember like when that you remember the documentary and that came out. I'm
Yeah,
sure I thought there was another one as well, but I couldn't find it anywhere. So maybe I imagined it, or it was a different thing, and it was the same one. I just remembered it differently. But I remember you also you ended up through a lot of that stuff. You're on like daytime talk show type
yeah,
things about
yeah,
women's wrestling. And I do remember
yeah,
one. I want to say the time, the place, or something like that. But I always just remember there was like an army. It was either a colonel or a captain, like an old guy in the army, and it was very much, why aren't you at home by the kitchen? Why aren't you, and all
yeah.
that sort of thing.
Do you know?
And
I don't know
that whole
don't know the exact one, Brett, but I know that's what I used to do. What it was when we'd done Raging Bells. There was another documentary, but basically it was about Robbie Brookside. But we were all sort of same kind of crew. We're in is one Blood, Sweat, and I think it was
definitely,
called
I'm
Blood.
sure there was another one where it was because he did his wrestling diaries one. I thought I saw you in another one. So I remember you like being at home and you were like doing ironing or something, and then you
That's
were doing
Raging
interviews.
Bells. That's Raging
It is
Bells. The one,
Raging Bells. It is
yeah,
Raging
the
Bells. Yeah.
one, and there's one where Doc Dean and Robbie Brookside chased me in a room and threw me on the floor, and I'm on top of me on the floor. That is Robbie Brookside's
Diaries on. Yeah.
stuff, not mine. Um, yeah, so there are odd things. I've been on loads and loads of different little things. But what in them days, because it was the misogynistic, they would take me on. I've been on. I went on with Kevin Keegan. I went on with Georgie Best. I did loads of stuff with them, and they basically would wind me up by saying, this, and then like there was one. I thought Oliver Reed was going to be on, and I thought, you know what, I won't be able to beat him. I'm sure because he's an arsehole. And he backed out. He backed out, so I didn't get to do it. But I did one with Georgie Best, and the saddest thing is George Best is sat there telling the TV people and telling, sorry, not the TV, but telling the audience that he's teetotal and this, that, and the other. And he was pissed as a fart, you know, and I'm like, this is TV. And it's not, kind of not for me, if you know what I mean. I went on cookery shows. I did things like, do you think it's all over? Feel the
I was
sports
going to get to that. I
curtain.
forgot about that. Yeah, Phil the Sports and
Well, do you know the weird thing is that I've got people in the wrestling world who know me well know I've got this thing about hygiene. I'm OCD about hygiene. Not in a home, in like a body sense. Because I believe that when you work with somebody, your hygiene is really important because you're very close to each other. So I'm the one who they come to when they want to tell somebody who is stinky, especially if they've tried to tell them and they don't get it, then they get me to get it to say it. So basically, they've had stacks on there and Nagasaki, but they have me on there and there's Gary Lineker, Rory Bremner, who plays the old dear in Father Ted,
hmm
her,
yeah, I
and
know you mean that.
and a really famous cricketer, but he was a weirdo. He was like a Bible
Gower, was it
bastard.
David Gower? He was one of the captains.
It might have been him.
Sort of
Curly
whitey
blonde
grey
hair
haired
at the
bloke.
time.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So basically, so they obviously they don't know it's you. They haven't got a clue because you're in hospitality, but you're the other side. So basically, you don't sort of meet up with them till after. So I'm in there, and they come out and start feeling me and everything, and they're touching all plate like, and you just stand there and let them do it. And I remember the woman. Gary Lineker was just a pure ignorant bastard. He was so ignorant, it was untrue, rude as well.
Yeah.
And this girl, so I'm saying like people who know me know that I've got, so to somebody come up to me and say I smell nice, you know it's the most flattering thing. I'll do anything for you if you tell me I smell nice. So basically this lady says to me, I can't even remember her name. I feel sad I don't know her name. Um,
In there, yeah, for Father Ted.
and she said, I don't know who you are, she said, but you smell beautiful. And I was like, oh, in the element. I thought that made it all worthwhile because I'm standing there thinking, what am I doing here? Because other than being around, I've got every confidence in the world around my own type of people, but TV, I don't know, they're not real. It's all that air kissing and horse kissing, and I can't do it. It's not. Unfortunately, it's not
What,
me.
what,
So
what about the movie world then? Because you're not a stranger to that. Even he did Blonde Fish with Margie Clark, and also the
yeah,
pop world. You work with the Pet Shop Boys.
yeah. Well, I
So
nearly didn't.
lots
I
of
nearly
different.
didn't work with. I nearly didn't get Blonde Fist because basically the director was a guy called Frank Clark. And oh, hang on, who's ringing me? Manchester. Who's that? What do I do, Brett? How do I press hold? Hold on.
I don't know on that one.
Hang on. I don't want to endure one. That's what I'm worried
That's all
about.
right.
Hang on. Are you there? Have you
Yeah, I'm
gone?
still. Yeah, I'm still here.
Why am I I don't know what's going on there then. Hang
I
on.
can
No,
still see
somebody
and
from
hear you.
Manchester.
I can
No, I
still
don't know
see and
who it
hear you.
was. I don't know who it was. Yeah, so where was he again? See, keep bloody going up.
Blomfest.
So basically what happened was I'd just done that documentary just gone out.
Yeah.
And I get a phone call one day, and this guy says in a really sort of Liverpool voice, "My name's Frank Clark. I made
Already.
I made a film called I'm trying to think what it's called now. It was like a cult film, but Letter to Brezhnev, that was it.
Oh
So he
yeah.
did this film called Letter to Brezhnev, and it was like I say, Liverpool. It was exactly like Liverpool is. So he said, "I'm making a film uh, about a girl boxer," and I'm thinking, as I'm listening, I'm thinking, this is one of the lads. This is winding me up, and I thought it was a guy called Frank Casey who worked as a convict. Can you remember him with a
So
little round glass?
I had some calls from Frank over time as well.
Oh,
So
well,
tended to be different people. Yeah.
Frank Casey, and he and I went, but the guy was called Frank as well. His name was Frank Clark, and he was Margie Clark's brother. So, um, so basically, they're on the phone all of a sudden. I get peed off, and I've said like, "Who the effing hell's this?" I said, "Who's this on this line?" I said, "Is it you, Frank?" And he went, "Yes." I said, "Well, piss off then, and don't wind me up." And I put the phone down, and then I sat thinking, and there was no 141 or nothing then. It was just a home
Oh, no.
phone.
All
So,
over
so
thingy.
yeah, So then, luckily, he rang back and he said, no, he said, I am Frank Clark. He said, I've done this thing. He said, I'm making a film. He said, I'd love you come to the Empire because Margie Clark was in Panto there. Come and meet him and maybe audition. So I went over there, met him. I'd never met him before, didn't I? Didn't know Margaret. I knew she was, but obviously I'd never met her. And I sat in the back with him after the show, and he only spoke to me for about 10 minutes. And he went, "You don't have to audition." He said, "You've got it." He said, "I want you to play the prison bully." And I thought it was a really little part, tiny part. Didn't have anything to say or anything, but I did enjoy doing it. But I think I was. I don't think I'm a good actress. I think I was, as in acting, I was wooden. But um, when you watch yourself on television, anyway, you feel a fool, don't you? Anyway, so I think that was quite a big deal at the time. But I've done odds and sods, but like I say, I'm not one of them people that go looking for it because I don't want to. Basically, I got a time and time again to go and wife swap and things like that, and absolutely not. So that was that. We were offered, me and Nikki were offered a follow up to, I think it was the follow up to Raging Bells, but Nikki wouldn't do it because Nikki had, like, I think she just didn't fancy it. So, and I didn't want to do it without her. So that was it. But no, I just now and again the odd thing comes along and somebody will ask me to do a seminar and it's either yes or no, and it just depends how I'm feeling, basically. But
Fair
I
enough.
mean,
But
people love working in TV, but it's I don't know, it's a bit strange to me.
then sort of twisting it around slightly now with the wrestling when it came off of TV, because obviously you were probably sort of you were peaking at that point. You say you got all these
Yeah,
things going on. You're a prominent fixture now. People know who you are. You're
yeah,
becoming almost like oh yeah, well you were a household name. Because
possible.
you're on all these different things as well. And then suddenly
Just the
wrestling's like,
time,
no, we're
yeah.
getting rid of it now. Well, what was that like from your point of view?
Um, well, we used to all take the mickey out of people who say things like, "Oh, I can't go anywhere." I get recognised, and we'd laugh. We'd just laugh because there was a few girl wrestlers and fellas that say that. And you're like, "Oh, get a grip of yourself." But the daft thing is, I've been in places, and people have come up and said, "I know you from somewhere. Where do I know you from?" And I don't want to say anything because it could be wrestling. It could have been at the time I was still living in Liverpool. So I literally did get stopped all the time in Liverpool. I've only not been stopped since I've lived down south because nobody, I mean, we've run shows here in Weymouth. Nobody's got a bloody clue about me. I sit there, Joe Soap. So, but it doesn't matter. That's great. But Stoke, I'm quite well known, I suppose. I don't suppose I can walk around Stoke really because that's where I come from. But like when people shout, I look around because I think they're shouting at somebody else, and I don't think it's me. And it was weird. It was weird, and it's quite nice. I think if you stand there saying it's a load of shit and you don't like it, then I don't know because I just found people really nice and just had positive things say. If they came up to me all the time and said I was a twat, like I could understand not liking it, but um, no, it was quite weird, and I always had, like I say, imposter syndrome because where I come from, it's a council estate. There's a lot of dysfunctional families, lots of kids with lots of problems, and I really know that instinctively because not only did I grow up near a council estate, I didn't actually grow on a council estate. I worked in a youth in the youth department um, with young people and all there with all who'd all got problems. There was so much going on, and I was taking knives and putting guns in drawers and calling police like 20 years ago. They're like, how it is in some places now. So I know what it's like for people to have a bit of attention when you've never had it. When you've never been that person who was who wanted it but never got love either. It's like there's so many mental things that make you who you are and the things that you've lacked in your life. Um, all my memories are happy from wrestling. My memories of my childhood are so limited because it wasn't a happy time at all. So I think I've blocked them out and turned them away. It's made me a different person because I don't know. I could have turned a nasty bugger and been a horrible, abusive person. And that that experience for me made me a better person, made me understand people more, have empathy. Because I believe if you haven't got empathy for people and you don't understand what's going on with them, then it's hard to understand what's going on with people. So it's taking the time, especially with wrestling. I think there's a lot of people who are in the wrestling business who've got mental health problems. And
What's that like though for you guys, on the team when suddenly that call comes through that ITV, that's it, wrestling's finished.
yeah,
That must have
uh,
been
well, do you know what? I actually, it didn't surprise me because I'd heard of Greg Dyke and I knew he was a tough, and so I just thought that it was inevitable that it had happened. But sad because it was a working man's show, And people from all walks of life enjoyed it, every walk of life. And it got a lot of viewers. So why they took it off was anyone's guess. But he really didn't like
He said in an
it.
interview it was too working class and old fashioned. I saw an
Yeah,
interview with him
yeah.
and he wanted
But
to modernise the channel.
yeah, load of crap, So when they took it off, to be honest, I don't think it affected some of us because we were used to never doing that. I mean, I went to work, I worked for Brian, and don't let anybody tell you that bullshit that if you work for somebody, they really just want you to work for them. They don't like you uh, putting yourself out for others. And the thing is, it shouldn't work that way. You should be able to go and wrestle. And I don't know if that happens now. It might not. Might be different now.
Yeah.
But we used to always be tried to persuade to work for one person. And I actually refused to do that, thinking, well, I might lose the job. I might not be a wrestler anymore. But I didn't want to be tied to one thing. And eventually, when they realised it wasn't going to matter, which it didn't, because Max Crabtree would never have used girls. Up to this day, can't believe he did, because he always said he would never, ever use them. And he always still kept them at arm's length. But I think he remembers me as a child watching at Victoria Hall, where I sat in the same place for the same years and watched and watched. And he said I was one of them that never got excited. He said, but I could see you were looking at the crowds and taking things in. And I said, yeah, that's exactly what I was doing. And so he was very nice to me and very sociable, whereas others he just sort of paid the wages and was gone. But I used to travel with him as well. So basically I did about 3 or 4 years with him, but I was still working for Brian. But Max was very kind to me. He'd come to my house and pick me up, and everybody was really nice, but it was a very different atmosphere. I felt comfortable with Brian's team and Brian's ways and his rules and regulations. I felt happy with them because that's all I'd ever known in Orig. To work for somebody else who I've watched grow up when I was a kid, and it's kind of fearful. So when you go, you don't know what it's going to be like. But it was fine. It just was not as fun, basically. But you're there to do a job, so the job is what you do. So that's how different it was. But there was very
Shows
different.
change. Did the shows change after the TV went though? Was it still were the crowd still there or did it?
Well, we had a bit of a. I think in the 2000s there was a bit of a lull in it, and maybe it was from being taken off. I don't know, but all of a sudden you'd have a dip and it'd be terrible, and then the next thing you're selling full houses, and the formula isn't work. It's not the formula you think will work. It's the weirdest thing. You think you've got a tried and tested thing, but you haven't. I think it's just getting them in, getting their horses on the seats to watch a show, enjoying that show, deciding either, well, I want to go see a different kind of wrestling show, or I want to keep coming see this one. And I think this is where they build, because I look now and there's so many different ages. There's young kids that watch, there's older people, there's people that remember the old world of sport, and you'll have them saying, oh, it's not the same as it was. It's not the same, but it's today. And we've got to keep going forward. And we've got to keep but the problem is, in this wrestling world now, there are so many people having to go that step further and that step further. Where's it going to stop? It's like when kids are breaking their necks and they're doing all stupid moves that could kill them. Basically, we put our lives in people's hands every day, and some people don't deserve to have your life in their hands because they don't think it's precious. So I just think it's a big responsibility when you're in that ring, and you've got to be mature enough to hack it. And this
Yeah.
is why a lot of people come in, don't last, and bugger off, and they're gone and never think of it again. Whereas I knew in my
Well,
head, I knew in my head if they'd have me, I'd never leave it, you know. I mean, if I oh, if I couldn't if I couldn't have if I hadn't hurt my knees and my bones were how they were going, I'd have carried on. But I didn't want to be that person who couldn't get in the ring and you look like an old fart trying to get in the ring, you know, when you're crippled. My last match, my knees were so bad, I had to hold on to a second's arm to get in the ring. You couldn't tell, but I had to stop there because you would have been able to tell soon, you know. And my last match was with Erin Angel and my daughter. And I thought it was awful. They thought it was okay, but I thought it was shocking. And that was me done because I thought if I can't give it my best, then I'm
Yeah,
not
no,
going to.
that's
You know, I say, don't get me wrong when I say this because I don't want anybody from my time saying I'm being horrible. I'm not. But I think if somebody said to me now, come on, come in the ring and do it, just stand on the, do it. My, well, I can't say what I'd tell him because it is ending off because I'm not the person I was. I can't move like I could. And that is for my mental health, not for I don't want somebody who's never invested in me to look at me and think, what's that old fart doing in the ring? You know, and I watch people who are crippled work that way and they're still working. Kendra Nagasaki is a typical, absolutely amazing bloke. Love him to bits. Local to me. We are friends, and I don't know. He's still on his 2 feet and still looking good. He looks amazing, but I see others going in who are, you know, they just look dire, and it's sad. And it makes me feel sad. It doesn't make me think, oh, bless him. You know, I just think, silly buggers, get out, you know. But that's what I would think about myself. So I wouldn't do it. So all these, you know, let's have a world of sport. People who are fit, yeah. I mean, Johnny Cade, you know, I'm not even going to divulge his age, but my God, he can still move. So can Johnny Saint, you know, and stuff like that. But you've got to be able to. No good going in and you're crippled and you're just making yourself worse. So I don't know, unless you're going into the tag matches, the old cronies or something, you know. So no, I don't think you should. I don't think you should reinvent yourself. I think you should go away.
women's. I was saying, what's the women's sort of scene like now after the sort of TV bit? Because I sort of have memories myself from sort of the 90s through the 2000s, and most of the time I just sort of remember like yourself, and I remember the odd name shot popping out here or there, but mainly it was like Julie Starr, and then like
Yeah,
the Sweet Soraya came along, and
there
then
was Lisa. There
Ginny
was
Prater. There were a few
Julia
names that would
Prater.
come and
Yeah,
go. There's a
Julia
few
Prater
names that would
came
come
back.
and go.
Yeah, well, she came way back before any of these. Julie Starr, Lisa Fury. So
Yeah, at
these
least
were
yeah.
that. Mitzi had retired. Lena was still doing some. Nikki was still doing a few then. But all of a sudden, everybody seemed to stop. There was me and Lena did a couple of years together, and Orig had got a couple of girls, but they were part time and they weren't. Once Crusher Mason passed away, there was nobody getting the kind of teaching that he taught them because all his girls that he taught were amazing, you know, they were really amazing. And
Remember
so
you just sort of getting fed just different sort of almost trainees really. You just sort of have a different
yeah.
trainee on each show that you
Trouble is when there's nobody for
bounced
you to
around.
work
Yeah,
with. But you know, in a way, that's an accolade because the thing is, he could have just said, "Well, no other girl, no job," you know. But none of them did. They all gave me work and all gave and worked me with men I'd never dream I'd ever wrestle, and also men who I so respect that I felt, even though in the ring I was very confident and outgoing. Inside, I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm nowhere near as good as this person, you know, and nobody believed that's what you were thinking. But I used to get all let up if I was on with somebody who I really, really respected. So they started putting girls in the Rumbles. And I thought, no, no, no. And I used to wait for a guy called Scott Conway. He's passed away now. And he was a nice guy to wait for. I enjoyed his shows. He
I
put
trained
me,
with Robbie.
well,
Yeah, so I
yeah,
trained.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, he put me in the Rumbles with the guys. And so they send me in first. And like, it's, oh, what's going to happen? And I genuinely, hand on heart, did not know. They would never tell me who's coming in. So my heart is in my mouth straight away. I'm trying to be Klondike Kate, and I'm thinking, don't send out Skull Murphy, don't send out Dave Taylor. So number one comes out, I'm out. Number two, Skull Murphy. Number three, Dave Taylor. And nobody for ages. So I mean, I'm like a cornered animal, and I can see them like losing the shit because they're going to laugh, and they know I am petrified, but I'm not showing it. Nobody thinks I am, and they know I'm petrified, and it was just so funny. And they both went to come for me, but then they got each other, and it was like, oh, I'm going to die here today.
I know exactly
Yeah,
what
I'm
you
going to
mean.
die
And
on my
uh,
horse here today.
the
Yeah.
first rumble I ever did, you were there actually at Southampton Guildhall, and
I
it's the
remember
first
you
one.
when you were around. I do remember
I had
the
hair
long
then and
hair. Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. I
Yeah,
do
and
remember you.
yeah, I just remember like you come in and give a bit of advice, and Flatline to give a bit of advice, and Robbie
Yeah,
give us all we were his trainees give us the pep talk before. But there was a bit where I was in there, and I helped Chen. It was when Frank Chick Cullen was like he'd just come back. So I was
yeah,
quite excited because I knew who he
yeah,
was,
yeah,
it was Chick
yeah,
Cullen. So I was like, "Eh?"
yeah,
and then
yeah,
I helped him get somebody out, and then I turned around, and there was only four people left in the ring, and everyone else had
yeah,
been in, and everyone had been chucked out. I didn't realise, and there was Ricky Knight in one corner, Jimmy Ocean in the other corner, and Chick Cullen in the other corner. I
yeah.
thought,
I bet
oh
you're
shit,
thinking,
I know who's out
Jesus, yeah.
next.
I've done many of them. And the thing is as well, throwing me over the top rope, like I don't naturally bump out over the top because it's something I don't do very often. And then I was doing these rumbles all the time. So I obviously uh, to be, but I won quite a few, And the funny part is, there's just a little story in the Isle of Wight. I was working for Scott, and I was in this rumble, and I'm the one they always wind up and succeed in winding up because they don't tell me nothing. So I'm in the ring, and everybody's gone, and as me and Johnny Storm left, but Johnny Storm's an egotistical little twat, and I mean, I love him to bits, I do, but he's very egotistical, and he does not want to go over that top rope. And I'm saying, pick your corner, because if you don't, I'm going to do it for you. And Christ, I've never seen anybody for small fight so hard. And I did actually get him over. So it was like, thank God for that. But, it's all part and parcel of it. And I would rather have worked with the guys than sit at home not wrestling. It was fun. We were on the road. I mean, I say I don't drink and smoke. I've never smoked in my life. I used to drink. I used to drink with Drew and Danny Collins, and I could keep up with them. And I don't know how I did, but I did. And then once I was having Logan and never touched a drop, and he's 22 now, so I haven't drank in over 23 years. So
That
basically, that had gone. So I used to drink under the table with him. I was shocking. So I'm glad I did, because I don't think I'd be alive now. I don't think.
You just reminded me now, actually. I missed about when you were talking about your son then. There was an incident with one of your, I think it was your first child that you may have just helped a TV show out with quite recently. Is that true?
Yes, basically, I was at Tunbridge Wells, and I got thrown over the top rope, and I didn't hook it quick enough, hook into the rope. So I sort of went over the top and bang, sort of landed on my stomach, on the side of my face, and on my stomach on the floor. So I get up. I don't feel very well, but I don't feel like desperate. So I go back to the dressing rooms, have a shower, get myself sorted, back to Liverpool. But by the time I get to Liverpool, I'm starting to hurt bad and don't know why. Still not enough to worry. So I go to bed, and I wake up in the morning, all my eye has dropped. My mouth has dropped. I've been slobbering, so I thought I'd had a stroke. So the Doc Dean takes me to Liverpool Women's Hospital, and I have they test me for everything, stroke, blood test, all the, and they said no, I hadn't had a stroke, and my heart was fine, and they said I might have probably got Bell's palsy, but then somebody looked in my eyes again and said no. She said I've just got a hunch. She said just let me, and she took me down to the maternity department, and I said, "Oh, the scan's down here." She went, yeah, they are here. And I walked, and I went in, and they put me on the scan, and they start scanning my stomach, and all of a sudden I can hear ba-dum, 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 and lying there, thumb in his mouth, and you could see as clear as day. Thumb in his mouth. He was 8.5 months pregnant. I was 8.5 months pregnant, and he was full term. His head was engaged, and I had him 2 weeks to the day. So I'd wrestled every day, not knowing I was pregnant, because in women, wrestling has a tendency to unstinky periods and all women things that it's not great for, So I'm pregnant and don't know. So basically, I've had no changes because I'm heavier than I've ever been. So I've no changes in my body, and the only thing I can think of falling later on was just feeling tired a lot, and a bit emotional. So I have him. He's perfect. There's nothing wrong with him. 8.5 pounds, and I come back out, spend 2 weeks with him at home, and then we went back on the road. Me, Doc, and the baby. So we were back on the road. So basically, and it was in all the papers. And I always used to think, you've got to know you're pregnant. But I think if you're a big girl and you also don't have a menstrual cycle, that's what it should be, then there's all sorts of things that can happen. I mean, I've had miscarriages and not known I've been pregnant, and to a point where one miscarriage was like having a baby. So it's been heartbreaking in a way. So I've had, like I say, there's a lot of heartbreak in it, but it's things that you kind of learn from. I mean, every child I've had, there's been something. Like my second child, I had a car crash, and for some reason in my head, I would not go, and I knew my shoulder was out, but I wouldn't have a X-ray, so I knew there was something wrong, and I tested, and I was pregnant with Connor, who was my daughter, and then third one, problems again, very big baby, but this time massive trauma. Me and him nearly died. He was born with a condition called Erb's palsy, which is basically they've ripped all the tendons and muscles in his right shoulder, which affects his growth of his arm, the use of his arm. So basically, he's had, over his years, he's 22, he's had 13 operations. He's got a different size arm than this. And that was another, where we both nearly died. And they thought he got meningitis. So I've had like three weird, I mean, my daughter's given me more trouble than anybody, but she was the least trouble having a baby, So I think that I've been very lucky for a person who was told I couldn't have children and managed to keep hold of the ones I've got, because it's kind of scary that you can go through months and months and not know you've got another life in your stomach. It's weird. It is weird, but it's true. It's 100% true. I know I was in all the newspapers. It was in the News of the World, all over the Sun and the Mirror and everything, and I got a picture of him, and he was such a big bouncy baby, So I'm glad he was actually 39 last week, so he's 40
How
next year.
how did Call the Midwife get hold of all this then? Was it something they
Right,
remembered or?
no, a guy on Facebook out the blue just messaged me, and I've tend now to. I don't know. I kind of get a feel for somebody who's messing me about and who's not, So I just ignore people that I don't think are saying what they mean. And this guy messaged me. I could see he was into wrestling. He did a bit of TV work and stuff. I don't think he was a wrestler, but he was something to do with it. And he messaged me. He said there's a producer and a researcher wants to talk to a woman wrestler who was around a few years ago. And he said, were you around in the 70s? I said, I was, yeah. I said, in 77, I started wrestling. He said, and do you? I said, I remember it like it was yesterday, the costumes, the posters, the kind of people that were on it, the kind of crowds, the smoking, all the atmosphere. So basically, I had a 2.5 hour Zoom with two of them, and I walked through the 70s with them. And in the actual program, the girl wrestler's got lupus. But basically, most of it was a lot of my story because the child was sat in the dressing room with another wrestler while she was in the ring, and all the posters were all everything I said. Basically they took on board everything I'd offered up, and said this is what it was like. So I was really happy to see it. And I love stuff like that. I don't mind anything like that. I like people asking me about those days because it's very nostalgic for me. And I can't actually believe that I've been in the wrestling. So it's basically the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the noughties, and the tens. So I'm 63 and I've been in 5 decades of wrestling. So I think that's good. I think I've
And
for
there's been
somebody whose mother said you'll never do nothing with your life, and you'll be in Blackpool for 2 weeks, and then you'll come home. So 50 years isn't bad, is it? So
brilliant. I mean, when World of Sport come back, you were one of
yeah.
the people when they done that. Well, it was a short run, really, but you were one of the
I
people they contact. You
genuinely,
were then you're there, yeah.
I genuinely thought they would be okay and they'd do it proud. But what they did, they spoke to the wrong people all the time. They had the right kind of people on the shows, but they were listening to people who knew about you know they did an interview with Brian Dixon. Now, if they'd have spoke to Brian Dixon about the shows, there was a lot they could have took from that. There was a lot they could have took from a lot of different people that they didn't, but they would actually taking notice from people who looked like they knew what they were on about, but they didn't, And then it got shoved from pillar to post with America, and somebody else was going to take it over. Then Nick Aldis come along, and I quite like Nick Aldis being involved with it because he had the right idea. You know what I mean? I mean, I can't speak for everybody else, and I can't speak for. But to use that world of sport, unless you were going to make a smidgen of something that is like that or can better it, then I don't know why it would be called World of Sport. It could have been called anything. So basically, I can understand why the old guys, the old timers, saw their arse to it because it was. It should have been about the documentary. Should have been about them. I don't even think I should have been in that documentary because I genuinely had only done the TV work I'd done was was with Shirley on the TV, but it had been taken off then, So basically, we were on Scottish television, and I don't know if it's. Can you still see me? Yeah, Brett.
Yeah,
Is
all
that?
good.
Yeah, no, it's okay. All my stuff's come off for some reason. Yeah, so I I can't say. I don't know why really. I was like one of the first invited, and I actually said to Rocco and Marty Jones, I don't think I should be here, And they said, don't be bloody stupid. They said, come, you must. And I was like I said, one of the first up there. But then people started jumping on the bandwagon, and there are talkers and there are doers, and there was a lot of talk and not a lot do. So basically, I did go to by the wayside. But it's a shame because with a few tweaks and somebody who knew what they were doing, it could have been a really good thing. I mean, I love the fact that the girls got to wrestle, the fact that Viper acknowledged me and all. I thought that was amazing. She didn't have to do that, And I only knew her from social media. I'd only met her from social media. The only girls who I really met and watched and thought were amazing was Tony Storm and the Scottish girl.
Kaylee Ray. Kaylee Ray.
Kaylee Ray, yeah. I actually, and I mean, I don't care if you put this in or not. You can if you want, but they did. This is another thing. I've got to get this in about holiday camps. Holiday camps. So basically, the girl we did holiday camps, but it's very much a different kind of show. You've got to get on board people who aren't interested in wrestling, could be outside in the sun or doing other stuff, to be interested in wrestling, unless you are interested in it. So those were the grounds, the holiday park, for learning and experience and crowd work. So it was amazing. And we had we had girls on. Connor was on quite a bit, and then one summer we had Kaylee Ray, Tony Storm, and a few others. And I watched Kaylee Ray and Tony Storm, and I cried. And I cried because for once I watched something where I could see they got it. You know, they understood it and they understood the storytelling. They didn't feel as if they were too good to be at a camp because, if it's good enough for people who work for the WWE, absolutely good enough for anybody here. You know what I mean? So some of these stars from WWE who knock it, they haven't been on it and they haven't done the time. Yet the ones who have been on have always had something good to say about it. So getting that experience was amazing. I mean, I got sacked many times from Brian Dixon because I could not curb it. And I got the sack once because the children come up to you and hit you with hammers, which is embarrassing. I mean, if you don't care, you don't care. But for some reason, it used to rile me. And my thing was, I would take it off the child and I would burst it. And there are times Brian used to shout to me, "I've got to give him a free one. Don't you dare bite anymore." And he hated it. So half the time he didn't put me on him because I wouldn't not go back. And like I hate anybody spitting water on me and stuff like that. But in the grand scheme of things, it was absolutely an amazing place to learn. And everybody's been on them. We've had people, like if it's good enough for William Regal and Robbie Brookside and Gangrel and all them, it's good enough for us. So don't be slagging off holiday parks, I'll be after you.
But what about, so like you say, you've got this whole new generation of women wrestlers that are coming through now or are through, and a lot of them have gone on to, I mean, most of the people in that world of sport have gone on to like the bigger leagues in America
Yeah.
anyway, like male and female. So they've all done well for themselves. And I know there was a bit a while back when I think it was just before Tony Storm went across and they did that E thing and you got called up for that and they did was it the Hall of Fame? Did they gave you like a nice
Oh,
sort of
Eve, yeah,
speech and
yeah, I
thing?
was the
Yeah, and all
first.
that. So yeah, I mean, what was
I
that
love
like? I
that.
mean, that's like the modern women's promotion, or it was at the time anyway, the top women sort of thing, and
I
they're
was
giving you a call.
I think I was quite shocked at the start. I was glad to do it, but also they were doing a documentary about that night as well. So basically, I went off and did an interview in a boxing place with them before the show, and then they did this where they gave me this award, and it was lovely to accept. Uh, but it was a venue that I'd never really ever been in. It was the people were so close; they were sort of right up to the ring, so I felt a bit daunted by that. And the girls, oh my God, the stuff the girls did were unbelievable. The how they think of these things and how they do them and how they put them in place. They were just amazing, and all the energy, and the place was buzzing. And all the girls there were so nice to me. None of them had to speak to me. They could not know me from Adam. But they were lovely. And I watched them all and I was really proud because I thought, do you know what? I was at the start of all this. And, the likes of Mitzi, who was before Mitzi was the first, and the Cassidy girls, all the Cassidy girls were here before me. And there's me, Nikki, and it's gone on from there. So it's just evolved year after year and got better and better. So, although I see, although I like a mixture in, and I like to tell a story,
Hmm.
I don't, uh, I, I don't like the idea of not having any crowd involvement. I don't think I could do it without that, So
Well,
my
like
bad, I suppose.
it's like this like work rate thing now, isn't it? I don't know if it's. I know. I think they've got it from Japan, but the thing is, in Japan, the crowd are involved. They just react in a different way. But I think they think
Yes.
now they need to
Oh,
get like I need to do 80 feet. I mean, there's promotions on now where I watch matches where, like you say, I'm cringing because someone's nearly crippled themselves, and they're the first match they've done
yeah,
40 moves, and it's two
yeah,
minutes in.
exactly. So what is there after that? You
Yeah,
see, it's like all the jumping around and the acrobatics, and then they come to do a finish, and your finish isn't amazing because you've done that much amazing things that it's nothing out of the ordinary. And I think, and I'm not knocking him. I'm not knocking him. The things they do are amazing, but
they're all athletic.
I just worry about their what's going to happen to them when they're older. And nothing different to me. I did it knowing I was going to be old and crippled one day. I still did it, and I understand that. But I don't understand how you think you've got to, you know, just hurt all the time and stuff. There's just so many things I watch, and I just think they're dangerous, and somebody is gonna die eventually. And it has happened, actually. It's happened a few times, but people always say it doesn't, but it does. There has been deaths from stuff. A guy tried to do a move of AJ Styles, and my family laugh at me because I kind of shudder at AJ Styles because of the finish he does. And I absolutely hate it. I hate it with a passion because there is nothing natural that tells you to put your head in the position your head has to be to survive it. And I just do not understand. And I know a boy's broke his back and is in a wheelchair doing it because of that. And I just think, that doesn't impress me. Nothing impresses me like that. I just want people to be safe. I want people to do things that are entertaining but safe. And because everybody's expecting more and more as the years go by, they're doing more dangerous things. I mean, also they're doing some manky things that drive me up the wall. I hate all these adult things where men are walking around and they're plonking the flipping old man on top of somebody's head and shoving the crotch in the face. And I mean, I've done a thing where all my life where somebody's put the backside of my face and that's fine. But I just think you can go so far and then it's got to sort of be nipped in the bud. So
You
sort of,
said Tony Storm earlier. I mean, I'm getting to the point where I'm wondering what she's going to say. I mean, what she's doing is working in fair play to her, but I do wonder what she's going to say next because she's got to raise, it's getting more and
got to
more
raise the. But this is the
risque.
problem. This is the problem. I love Tony, and I also loved her at the start where she decided that she wanted to be like a wrestler and wrestle what I call properly. So, but these girls and the guys, their epitome of breaking in is getting to the WWE, and that's their goal. And if that's their goal, that's fine. I mean, I started WWE hadn't even been invented then, and it's all right. Yeah, Vince McMahon was about, but Vince McMahon, not senior, but the senior, if you know what I mean. So he was that was just happening then, but there was none of this. There was none of the stuff, and I don't think people sell out because I think at the end of the day, if you get what you want from that, if she's happy to do that, I mean, it used to be all. I've always said it years ago. It was tits and arse, and I found it horrendous. I found watching the women horrendous, and also in those days, their screaming and the way they wrestled was just to me like I wanted to say get a frigging grip, or get a rocket up your arse. And this is how I felt about it. And I didn't want to feel like that. I wanted to be an advocate for women, and enjoying what they were doing. But now it's a different kettle of fish now. And there is still TNA. We know that. That's what a lot of it's about. But at least they have different ways and means of doing stuff now. And I don't blame Tony for doing that. I kind of gasp. I think nothing ever shocks me, and I don't think it does. But I just kind of put the benchmark. It's like I saw something disgusting once, absolutely disgusting, and it was mainstream. And I just thought, I cannot hack this. That it really made me embarrassed that I'd been a female wrestler, and it was all over the internet. And basically, it was about a tampon, and
I thought that was what you yeah, it was,
yeah, and it absolutely disgusting. And to make that part of the show, you're scraping the barrel there, and I just thought it was awful. Fake blood on a
agree with you,
tampon. What the hell?
but do you think it's that drive now of, again, we were talking earlier about the social media and to stand out and promote your brand and be different, and also I think maybe where wrestling is almost 24 hours a day now with social media. There
Yeah,
isn't a thing where you can do an angle, run it around the block, come back, do the next bit, run that around the block.
yeah,
Everything is moving so quickly. Is it
yeah,
that? Are we in that world now where it's the bugs? We're talking to someone, well, someone I know, as well, yesterday, like our friend Chris, and we are
yeah,
talking about like Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck. When the
yeah,
gun gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's
yeah,
that sort of thing now, and it's
yeah. You've always got to
yeah,
go that one more, and it's like, where does it end? What happens?
exactly.
And also it's kind of a nostalgia thing as well. I know that soon, and it won't be that long, those reunions I go to for the old ones, our like generation, will no longer happen. I don't know whether young ones will take that forward and do their own kind of thing, and I really wish they would, because what I've found solace in the fact that there are people who have been in the job who are like me now, where I'm living a retired life. I don't do anything. I'll do what I want. And it sounds nice, but it isn't. It isn't, because you kind of go from 1,000 mile an hour down to nothing, and that is not good for your mental health. So it's kind of it's finding that something in between that keeps you going. So, like I say, now I've not lost interest, because I can talk for Britain still. I still love people, and I'm so in awe of people who are good, who have got the gist of it. Stop. But when will it stop? What will be the end of it, and what will be the deciding thing that is saying up? People have spent years trying to make unions. There's no union. There's no medical insurance. There is nothing. Years ago, you could get insurance. Now you can't. And it's no union, nobody helps you. If you are self-employed, and if you get hurt and you're off, you've no wages. And it's as simple as that. And it's quite a hard thing to take on board, because there's no sort of insurance, there's no policy, there's no money coming to you. Your life is in your hands. So this is why I have to, as well, I say about how they hurt each other and the things they do. But a lot of that is, some don't give a toss that they are going to do that. But I truly think that you should care for who you're on with. Not, you know what I mean? Not in a way that, oh, you're my pal, but in a way that is conducive to you doing another night. Having been there to wrestle the other night. And my God, like I say, I've had some good hidings. I've had more good hidings off a crowd than I've had off a wrestler, that's for sure. Many, many good hidings. Farmers, big 6-footers. I've had some on the floor, and some have had me on the floor. So I think Southampton was one night. You might have been there, and a guy kicked me in the face when I was outside the ring, and he caught my eye and split all my eye open. And he just sat there. So I basically snapped his glasses off, smashed his glasses on the floor, and then chinned him.
Yeah.
And all the guys came running down to get me off. And I actually had lost the plot, had lost it. He really hurt my eye. I got the massive shiner. And I'm trying to get at him, can't get at him. Drew has come down, McDonald's, to pull me off, and somebody's ripped my earring out, and there's all sorts going on. There's scuffles and swearing, and this old man is hanging on to me, and I'm hanging on to him. And Drew said, "Let go of him, come on." And I said, "Get away from all of them." I made them all get away from me, and I ended up in a right state in a heap. And that's pretty much summed up. I've climbed through a window as well before now and got stuck in the window and had to have the fire brigade come and get me out the window because they were trying to get me out of the dressing room and there was no back door. So got stuck in the window. And the bloody fireman had to go. And that was at a place called Maidenhead, and it was full of travellers, Romanies and travellers and people like that. That used to get always full, and it was packed, and they were bayed for blood. So I was hanging out the window. I've had all sorts. Dave Finlay has been my saviour many times and has got me out of many, many scrapes. Unbelievable. Anybody could have just left me. But yeah, it's been a blast.
I just thought of it now. I should have got it in earlier with the TV stuff. What did you think of did you ever see that World of Wrestling sort of short film skit with all the wrestlers on the bus
Oh,
where
yeah, well, load of shite. I actually messaged Miranda Hart and I said, "Miranda," I said, "I'm Klondike Kate." I said, "I don't know if you've ever heard of it or anything." I said, "But I see you've done this video." And I said, "Was there any particular reason for it?" And she did answer me and she just said, "No, it was just a bit of a skit." I said, "Well, who's thought of it?" She said, "Oh, I don't know." I said, "Was it like a paid job?" And she said, "Yeah." And I thought, I just don't see no rhyme or reason to it, did you? There was like, why? you know, Miranda Hart has
I only
also.
found it recently.
Oh, did you? Oh, no,
Yeah, I literally, it went past it yesterday, in fact, when I was with a friend, and I went, "What you want about?" And he went, "That," and I thought
taking the
I
piss.
was quite amused by it, just for the
I
fact
was
that
amused by it, but I just thought, why? What's it for? Or,
to me, it was like
if there's a reason.
if you knew nothing about wrestling, you would not have had a clue what was going.
No,
If someone just
not a
turned
thing.
on, you would have no clue what was going. That was what I'm
Not
amused
a
by, and I've
clue.
been trying to track it down. But the guy that wrote it is an actor. I've forgotten his name now, but he's been in some proper like top like Game of
I'm
Thrones and
hoping
stuff
it
like that, and
isn't.
he's a proper writer and stuff. But I think it was a. He did
I'll
three
have a look.
altogether. He did one on Adam and the Ants, where
Yeah.
they're doing late
Yeah.
night shopping in Tesco's or something. There was one on Blake Seven where they're at a junction like roadside cafe type thing. So I
Yeah.
think it was a bit of a love letter to his childhood or something. But
Maybe that's what it was then, but because I
yeah,
could
but
not get,
I was
I
just
just did
bemused
not
by it.
make a connection. I don't know why. And
Yeah.
like, it's supposed to be playing me, and I'm thinking she's nothing like me. Not a gear wasn't, but it was like they were taking the piss, and I just thought, yeah, I don't like
No,
that.
I get what you mean, but I was just bemused
Yeah,
by the whole thing because it
yeah,
was
yeah. It
just
was funny. I did think it was funny.
if you didn't know anything, you would if it's on telling you flip through, you're like, what the hell is this? I don't know any
Yeah,
of these things. Nothing was
yeah.
explained, and it was just a bit surreal. I was just just totally
I'll tell you what is
amazed.
surreal. I'll tell you what is surreal
Yeah,
is your 13-year-old son sat in school and the new English textbooks come out for their year 11 or year 10, and your mother's on the front of it. And it's called Klondike Kate and Other Stories. And this book went round, and my son Adam said to the class, "This is my mother." And to the teacher, and the teacher kicked him out and said, "Don't be so stupid, get out. Get out, Adam." He said, "This is my mother, my mother." And there was such a kerfuffle about it. She went up to see the headmaster, and the headmaster said, "Yeah, that's his mother."
yeah,
And that was surreal. When he come home, he said it was horrendous. He said, "I sat there, he said, I could see you." He said, "And there was this story about you being this terror in the ring and a little lady out the ring. They said they got neither right, did they? I said, no. But he said everybody wound me up. So for years they called him something stupid, But it's real funny because it's a bit of a deja vu now because my grandson goes to the same school that his mum works in, that Connor works in, and everybody knows he's my daughter's son. So he's got his own nickname now, and they're all like wind him up and everything. So it's like it's really weird, but
Interesting
funny,
parents evening. Thanks for
unbelievable.
yeah. Like, did, can you sign this for me? Yeah,
And he just
sign the poetry.
he just handed the book round. He went, "That's my mother," and somebody went, "Oh, it's not," blah blah blah. And the teacher went all red
Brilliant.
and said, "Get out, get out, get out, blah, blah." And it was, it was. I've got the book somewhere. Somebody gave it me from school, and I can't remember. But I remember. I actually remember doing the actual thing because it was just unusual. It was one of the first. It was one of the first kind of interviews I did with somebody, and then I did a thing about. I made people cry, and I don't understand why, but I did a thing about musical memory. A lady wrote a book um, for Alzheimer's and dementia, and I wrote, and it was your favourite music memory. Well, my music memory was of my mum, and even though I was abused by her and had a real rough time, when she died, I was devastated. And she used to live in Ireland and always used to sing a song called Danny Boy. Oh, and I bloody hated it, but it reminded me of my mum. Oh, Danny Boy, this song. I think it's Scottish, not Irish. Anyway, we played it at my mum's funeral, all this, that, and the other. So then I've got to put which is my strongest music memory. So I basically told him about my mum and the fact that she passed away and the day was sunny and everybody was crying when they read it. And it was one of the first in the book as well. So I've done like loads of little bits and pieces like that. I want to write a book, Brett, but I'm like what's the word? I'm a pontificator. I keep saying I'll do it and I don't. I've even bought myself some software to do the stuff I want to do, but I still haven't sat down to do it. So I've got to get me. I would love to write a book, and I've no idea who publish it, no idea if anybody would be interested. But oh my God, it wouldn't be like the others. I'd want a bit more of everything in it, you know. And I think a lot about mental health as well, because I think we're all crackers, all of us, things that are going on in the world now. So
No, that's
I would like to do something like that, but I just need a rocket under me, I think, for that. So I don't
going to
know
be
what.
my. That was sort of going to be my next question.
Yeah,
Where is because I know you retired now from the ring, but
yeah.
is Klondike Kate still about, or is she retired as well now?
No, I think we're done really because, like I say, and I don't know why the art's gone because of Brian, because it wasn't only Brian I used to work for and stuff like that, but it seems that everybody I ever loved and had a lot to do with have pretty much gone. I mean, there's so very few world of sport lads. I mean, I'm one of my best muckers is Mel Sanders. He's one of my best friends, and he's still here, and John Cortez is still here, and he's my friend, and nobody hears from him because he's like 85,
Yeah.
and Nagasaki, and they're all getting old, and I just think to myself, we're all going to be gone soon, and there's nothing left of us, and you have this like, I'm not being morbid, but my epitaph is I don't want people to forget us, and I don't just mean me, I mean our style and our ways and the memories we've got. So I keep saying, yeah, I'll write a book, and I will be honest in that book. I would like to say, I mean, I would never say anything to hurt anybody. There's no need for that. There are so many stories that are nice, positive, funny, negative, but there's things that out there that don't have to be talked about ever. So I think it'd be nice to do something, and for it to just be a bit of a document of because I see these books and these lads writing books about wrestling, and I think, what the shit are they talking about? And they don't know what they're talking about, but they think they do. And armchair fans and all that. Sometimes that drives me nuts. But fans were our bread and butter. But I do wish sometimes that when they're sitting there telling us like it is, whereas we know what it is, and they think they know it better. That's the kind of thing I don't like. I don't like
I
that
think
stuff.
one of the weaknesses, and I get why it happened because we didn't want to record everything because we might be doing similar things in similar towns around the country, maybe. But I
Yeah,
mean, there was the rest of the magazine, but a lot of the British sort of stuff and stories and things just never got documented as it went along. And it's
yeah,
something I've sort of tried to do and get bits of. I mean, like I said, there's magazines and programs and posters and
yeah.
things like that, but you
Mm.
know, whereas in the States they seem to have a record for everything everywhere. But there is stuff appearing
Yeah.
now thanks to the internet. But it was
Oh,
never,
I
and I don't
don't know
think
who it
people even
was.
thought about it.
Some guy, and I don't even know what I've done with it. I'm not being. Please God, I hope he doesn't know. But you know, I didn't want it. I didn't ask for it, but he sent me this little file, and it had got about 25 years of me wrestling on it, and me wins and me loses and where I was and all that. And half the time I don't know where I was, a week ago. And my best friend has always been around the wrestling business. She lived with a couple of wrestlers over the years, and she's got children. So basically, she has been amongst us for years, and she's been my timepiece in a way because I was never a person who took photos. I was never a person. I used to write a diary, but then John Cortez found my diaries when I was about 19, and I never wrote another one because he told everybody what was in my diaries, and I was mortified. So basically, that was me done. But I've always wrote. I've always done a little like poetry, somewhat stupid, but it's for me, But I just think that no, things should be journaled, and I feel now that if I hadn't got Wendy, who's documented everything over the years, I've got a picture of me and her in the snow in 1977. I'm 14, she's 16, and I've got my wrestling gear on in the snow, and she's got a leotard on. She's not a wrestler, but that makes me feel so nostalgic when I look at it, and I can just go back to it like it was yesterday, and that was over 40 years ago. So she's my person I go to for time, time because I think I'd have to put on the wall. I'd have to take years to get together when things were. I can remember things, but I can't sort of pin down on times and dates. So it's hard. It would be hard to a boot, but I would like. I think I'm edging closer, so I might do one. Nobody might want it, but at least I've done one. And then, I said I would.
So
Yeah.
if anyone who's listening to this now wanted to get hold of you or ask you, what's the best way? Would it be Instagram or management or something
Told
like
you
that?
I'm a social media horse, so you'll find me anywhere on social media under
Well, what I
Klondike
do,
Kate or
I'll link the Instagram on the show notes now. If anyone's got any questions or
yeah,
book,
yeah. So any
bookings or
Facebook
whatever,
Messenger, I'm
yeah,
on. I'm pretty much. I don't like X anymore. I
I've been
kind of
that
don't
one
like that.
myself.
It depresses me. Does X? I don't like all the.
I've been that off.
Yeah, I don't like any of what's going on there at all. And I don't. I, I'm a person. Sometimes I think it depends what mood I'm in. I bite and then I don't bite, and I bite less than I used to because things used to matter more to me. Whereas I'm 63 now, which is not really an old age, but I'm 63, so I'm at the stage now where I think I don't want to argue about something that isn't working for me, and I don't want to look at something I'm not interested in. If somebody sends me video, people do still send me little videos and they say, "Oh, can you tell me, is this all right? What am I doing?" And I find that hard because I think, what can I tell them? But I suppose I do. I watch them and I can see things that I think, oh gosh, yeah, or no, or you know. But I always think it's not down to me to tell them that. I think it's somebody who's got a bit of an all round of everything. I watch James Mason teach. I watch Joel Redmond teach. So many of them who were so good at the schools, and there was none of them schools when we were young. None. none. You just either they took a fancy to you, or they like the jib, they cut your jib and you got in. Mainly wrestlers got into wrestling because the families they were part of a wrestling family. I had nobody in the wrestling that I was anything to do with. So I was one of them that they found hard let in, but I got in. But I did work. I know I worked hard for it. I worked hard to be respected and to be sort of accepted. And it was lovely because I was accepted. I've seen girls sit up a corner and nothing. They've sat there all night. Nobody's bothered with them. And if that's not what you want, then that's great. But I like, I've got a bit more life in me than that. I want a bit of fun. And then when it's time to do my job, get on and do my
Yeah,
job as a professional. Yeah, and that's what I think it's all about. So not all play, but not all fun. So it's a happy mix.
exactly. So if anyone asks you, well, I was just going to say as well, so if anyone who's listening to this and is either maybe they are wrestling or thinking about it or whatever, what you just said a bit there, but I was just going to say, have you got any advice for them
Well,
that you would
if
say,
it's something, I don't think you can be a part-time wrestler. You either have got that drive where you really, really want to make it, and you want to say your aspirate. My aspirations were to wrestle in Madison Square Garden, and I never did. And that was my aspiration, and I never got there. But a lot of people's now their aspiration is Japan, is WWE, TNT, all those ones, and it's harder now because you have got to have something different about you. It's about your diversity and about you doing something that may be different from others. And it is a nightmare because there isn't anything that isn't getting done. There's things that people will do and will go in the ring and do and won't do. And if you really, really, really want it, then go for it. But I think if you are a person who works on a different job, especially a job that is tasking on your mind, on your brains, and everything else, I don't think it comes up trumps for you, to be honest, because I think you have to commit totally to it. And that's what I did for years. It was only once I was 36 I decided to learn a different skill. And luckily, I picked up a great skill that gave me a job that I could have done till I was 70, but I moved down here and worked down here. And I've always been around wrestling. People say to me, why it shows, why you do merchandise and things like that, because it means I'm around the people I love, you know, and I don't have no airs and graces about the kind of work amongst the people I love that I do, So it's what you stand for, and if you want to be good, you've got to come up with something different. Because I was ugly, I was fat and ugly, and everybody else kind of looked pretty, and I came and replaced Alka Haggerty, who was fierce and she petrified me, and I became her after that. And there wasn't anybody like that for a long time. And then lovely Viper come along, gorgeous though, she's beautiful, come along and took a space. But you know, you've got to have something different, and you have got to want it so hard. Look at Paige in WWE. Look at her; she's worked her arse off to get where she's got, and a lot of heartache on the way, and it's just things you've got to take, So you either want to do it, and it's something you do, but unless you want to do it as an hobby, and I don't think an hobby is a good reason to do it. So really, I think you've got to be 100% like, I want it, I want this. So you have to get either growing two noses or three breasts or something like that. If you look a bit different, then you'll be all right. See, they went through stages where everybody's hair was long, the bodies were amazing, and then there was years when there was big wrestlers that didn't look like all looked like they'd had ham sandwich all their life, then stuffed the cakes down like me. But it was down to sort of all different styles and everything, and you could have been a massive heavyweight. I mean, one of the most amazing heavyweights was Colin Johnson, and he's nothing to look at. He's a short man, but oh my God, his wrestling brain is unbelievable. Unbelievable, for a man of his size, what he did, and people might watch and say, oh, it's bored. It wasn't bored. He was a like amazing, amazing wrestler for the size of him as well. So I think it's having the thought of about what can I do that's different about me? What can I say? And you can't be embarrassed. You've got to give it all heartedly. I'll go do a cartwheel. I tried to do a cartwheel down Dorchester Road where I live with my horse hanging out if I thought it would help me in my wrestling career. So I think that it's having that kind of fire for it. Because I look at someone and think, that's my famous saying, you need a rocket up your arse, and people who haven't, I don't think you get very far in this. It's just not for you. You've got to be lethal, unfortunately. Yeah, there's so many nice people, there's so many, they'll give you anything and they'll help you with anything. So go for it, go for it. Just don't let your daughter in it or your son.
That's fair enough. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. It's
Bloody hell,
been an
Brett, my
awesome
throat's
chat.
killing me.
A huge thank you to Klondyke Kate for joining us this week, a true British wrestling legend and a lady that broke down many, many barriers that British female wrestlers are enjoying the benefits of today. Thank you so much. If you want to learn more about Kate, if you go on to the show notes at the grapplervariety.com, you'll be able to see all the details, her social media links, and maybe some match clips and things on there as well that I will add into that so you can get to see her in her finest hours in the ring. Anyway, that's the end of this week's show now. We are back next week with another new guest. As I said, the grappleofyoureye.com is our mothership. That is where you can find all of our past episodes, our social media links, and all the other things that we're up to. You can catch us on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, and all the other social media links. So give us a follow, maybe share some of our stuff. It really does help. And remember, new episodes drop every Thursday at 7 a.m. UK time, and you can watch them on YouTube or you can listen to them on Spotify, on Audible, on Apple Podcasts, and all the other podcast apps that are out there. You'll be able to find us. Any reviews, likes, or shares, etc., that you can do on that really do help us out and help push us out the darkness of the pit of podcasts and into the shining light of sensationalism. So please do that. It really does help us out. All we want to do is spread the global gospel of grappling, because grappling and all its different styles are all branches of the same tree in our eyes. So we are here for the whole lot. Anyway, we draw to a close this week. So now it's time to stay safe, stay on the mats, and we'll see you next time.